Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
There are, of course, those who do not want us to speak.
Just let me think.
I suspect even now, orders are being shouted into telephones, and men with guns will soon be on their way.
It's Chancellor Sattler.
Damn it.
Why? Because while the truncheon may be used in lieu of conversation, words will always retain their power. Words offer the means to meaning, and for those who will listen, the enunciation of truth. And the truth is, there is something terribly wrong with this country, isn't there?
You designed it, sir. You wanted it foolproof. You told me every television in London.
Cruelty and injustice, intolerance and oppression. And where once you had the freedom to object, to think and speak as you saw fit, you now have censors and systems of surveillance coercing your conformity and soliciting your submission.
We need cameras.
How did this happen? Who's to blame? Well, certainly there are those who are more responsible than others, and they will be held accountable. But again, truth be told, if you're looking for the guilty, you need only look into a mirror.
Look into a mirror. Ask yourself, what the Guy Fawkes is going on here? And of course, as you saw V for Vendetta, that's why most Americans know Guy Fawkes. The people in the UK understand this goes back to 1605. It's something they celebrate every November 5th. Remember, the 5th of November, gunpowder treason plots. And so this is something that has come around again to us as we're looking at this most recent terror attack in the UK. What is going on? We had an individual here who was documented by the BBC on television as a Jihadi Next Door, and yet even after that, as he was known to his co-workers, he was working at the Westminster tube station. He had privileged access to the tunnels under Parliament. And of course, if you don't know the history, what Guy Fawkes was trying to do was to load gunpowder under the tunnels under Parliament to blow it up while Parliament was in session. If this guy had been the least bit interested or the least bit efficient, it could have been far worse than it was. Instead, he did some ad hoc attacks with vans with knives instead of using his privileged access to do far worse. And it wasn't just the tunnels under Parliament. He also had worked at the Canada Water Station and the Docklands. He could have poisoned a massive number of people as well. So you have to ask yourself, truly, what is going on? Are they that stupid? Can they be that stupid? Of course they're not that stupid. They want these people here. They allowed them to be exposed. They documented what they had done. They saw them unfurling and worshiping the ISIS flag. They documented that and left them in place. They're bringing people in, and they're wearing a mask as well. They're not wearing the mask of Guy Fawkes. They're wearing the mask of political correctness, a mask that is going to be used to kill us. And of course, the terrorists have their masks as well. But if you look at this article, we see this photograph that was taken in May 2016 at the West Kensington station during his training period. The year previously, he had starred in a Channel 4 documentary, The Jihadi Next Door. Now, they said it was well known that he had appeared in this extremist documentary, but he was asked to leave the London Underground not because of that, but due to poor attendance. You see, we cannot have somebody who's going to be an effective jihadi terrorist, somebody who's going to be a mass murderer, if they just can't be enthusiastic about it. We have to get somebody in there who's got a little bit more grit to do this. A good example of this is what we saw in Iran today. We had some people wearing their masks there, some terrorists, some ISIS terrorists, dressed as women in burqas, and they assaulted the parliament there, just as this, a little bit more competent. These people couldn't get themselves together to assault the UK parliament, but these people in Iran did attack the parliament. They came in with a suicide vests as well as AK-47s, dressed as women because you can hide a lot of stuff under those burqas. A lot of people have said, well, we have to be concerned about women terrorists, women suicide bombers. Yes, of course. But of course, ISIS will even dress as women. They will self-identify as women so they can get this through. They had 12 people who have been killed in that area. They also attacked a shrine to Ayatollah Khomeini. You have to understand that in the Middle East, we have the Sunnis who hate the Shias who hate the Wahhabis who hate the Sunnis. Everybody hates everybody as much as they hate the U.S., as much as they hate Israel. They hate everyone, and they hate each other. They believe everybody is worshiping the devil if they aren't worshiping their false god of Allah. And of course, they all have a different idea as to who Allah is. Meanwhile, we had another report from Abu Dhabi of an immigrant there, a Pakistani immigrant, going into another Arab country, Abu Dhabi, a man wearing a burqa. He lures in an 11-year-old boy, rapes and murders him. He said he knew that he wouldn't walk off with a man, but I could get him to walk off with a woman. See, these are the masks that they wear. What they want to have you see is not what they're doing. One person has seen through this, though. We've had Angela Merkel, who, although she doesn't wear a mask, we've drawn her with a burqa. She is clearly using the mask of political correctness. We have Theresa May telling us that they have to take our free speech. As you just heard in V for Vendetta, words always retain their power. That's what they have to destroy. They have to destroy our free speech. Our free speech is not the problem. The internet is not a breeding ground for terror. They have brought in a radical religion, and the people who come in who are peaceful are those who do not practice it. If they believe even tangentially that religion, they are a breeding ground for terror. When someone explains to them what their false prophet actually said, and they believe it and act upon it. Now, the Polish Prime Minister, days before these latest attacks in the UK, stood up and addressed the European Parliament. And she said, you have to rise up from your knees. Do not worship the flag of ISIS like this jihadi did. She said to them, rise up from your knees, rise up from your lethargy, or risk crying over your children every day. She said, if you can't see this, if you can't see the terrorism currently has the potential to hurt every country in Europe, and if you think that Poland should not defend itself, you're going hand in hand with those who point this weapon against Europe, against all of us. The Polish Prime Minister said that political correctness and unchecked mass migration of refugees into Europe will increase the threat, increase the frequency of terror attacks. That's precisely it. The political correctness is the breeding ground of terrorism. The mass migration is the breeding ground of terrorism. The wars for regime change in Iraq and Syria, elsewhere, that have been created by the same people that the mainstream media gave a complete pass to last week at Bilderberg. Those are the breeding grounds of terrorism. And those are the people who are plotting it. She stood up and directly attacked them. And she said this before the back and forth between Donald Trump and the Muslim mayor of London, Mayor Khan. This is what she said several days even before the attack. The Prime Minister of Poland said it needs to be said clearly and directly. This is an attack on Europe, on our culture, on our traditions. Do we want politicians who claim we have to get used to the attacks, who describe the terrorist attacks as incidents? See, that's what Mayor Khan would later do in just a few days. That's precisely the way that he would respond. Precisely the way that he would respond. When Donald Trump called him on it, he was attacked. He was attacked by everybody here in the United States and the army of those who enforce the religion of political correctness, the religion of multiculturalism. She said, do we want that, or do we want strong politicians who can see the danger and can fight against it efficiently? That is what we want. We want it to be addressed. We want it to be fought. We have to have a control of our border. That's why Donald Trump is so angry about the lack of the Justice Department's ability to get this travel ban through. We have to understand, when we go back into history, Donald Trump identifies with Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson said to the Supreme Court, he's made his decision. Let's see him enforce it. He understood there is a constitutional division of power. Donald Trump needs to understand that. He needs to act upon that. Of course, they will call him a dictator, a fascist if he does, but he has that power. Andrew Jackson used that power. He used it for a bad purpose. He used it to drive the Cherokee out of their lands, the Vale of Tears. But this can be used for a good purpose, to keep our land from becoming a vale of tears as they destroy our children, as the Prime Minister of Poland said. And I'll finish with these words. She said, either Europe will get off of its knees and start to seriously consider counteraction measures, but that means rejecting political correctness, or these types of incidents will continue. We will turn our country into a trail of tears if we do not enforce the law. Donald Trump has the constitutional authority. He has a direct legal authority to determine who is allowed into this country and who isn't. And if the Justice Department won't fight for it, we need a different Justice Department. For Infowars.com, I'm David Knight.
want to tell you about some of the products at InfowarsStore.com. We are under constant attack. You know it by now from the mainstream media. They're trying to attack us on every level. Now with the YouTube scandal, they're demonetizing our channels, which again takes a huge chunk out of our income, which is why we always appreciate and rely on you getting the products, because that's how we stay afloat. They can't get to us that way. They can't pressure you to not buy the products. They don't have that power. And that's why you're the key to this entire operation. We have Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste, bubblegum flavor just arrived at InfowarsStore.com. This is by listener request. Bubblegum flavored Super Blue toothpaste now available at InfowarsStore.com in limited supply. Again, if you're not using fluoride-free toothpaste by now, then you're absolutely insane. Harvard studies, it reduces IQ, it causes bone cancer. It's not great, let's just put it that way. And I've been using it for about, what, 15 years now? So you're going to buy it anyway, why not buy it from us? It's in limited supply, but it is available at InfowarsStore.com with the new bubblegum flavor Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste, and it supports this network, which is under constant demonization and attack, because we don't take big fat checks from George Soros. We don't get put on extremist lists, even though they want us to. That's how they're taking away the YouTube money. That's why we need your support more than ever, because we're not funded by giant corporations who are now pulling the plug on YouTube as they move it into a TV thing, a Netflix model, to drown out independent voices. So support us by getting the products at InfowarsStore.com.